Hey, what's going on everybody? Mano back here, and today we are showing you how any Titan can solo flawless the new Grasp of Avarice dungeon. But first of all, I want to say thanks to all the new folks in the community. Thank you to everyone showing a lot of love for the first solo flawless Grasp of Avarice dungeon. It is now one of the top videos on YouTube on how to do this. So thank you to all those folks that came over. I do appreciate it greatly. For those folks who are new here, hi, my name is Mano. I love playing Destiny and teaching people about it, and dungeons are some of my favorite things to do. My goal here is not to show you some crazy strat that requires you to hit the boss once with a hammer, but is instead a guide for those folks looking for manageable techniques that any Guardian can do if they put in the time and effort. That means you don't have to be a Glad, you don't have to be an Esoteric. All you need to do is follow the strats that I've got here in the video guides. And I'm going to be using only accessible gear, which most Guardians who are in the end game can use. That means no raid gear whatsoever, including the raid Sparrow. We're going to get to that later. But before we kick this off, if you like something inside this video, make sure that you gently tap the like button. 9 out of 10 people who did this became more attractive to that special someone, especially on April and September 31st. If you want to see more Destiny 2 content and guides, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. That way you don't miss a single video guide that I put up. And also come on over to twitch.tv/manodestra. I do tons of things inside of Destiny, whether it's Grandmasters, raids, exotic helps, dungeons, and more. Come on over and join a great community. All right, enough shameless shilling. Let's do this, shall we? All right, first of all, these are just suggestions, but they make for an easy solo clear. First up, for my super. For my boss damage supers, I'm always going to be using the Ward of Dawn, aka the top tree Sentinel Titan. Not only will I do amazing damage at the boss, but there are certain perks of this class that will help keep you alive, like Defensive Strike, which will help generate an overshield when you're meleeing certain enemies and you get kills. You've got Turn the Tide, where your overshield from Defensive Strike will actually give you faster reload, and then Rallying Force, where melee kills restore health for a period of time. Together, this makes for an awesome DPS class. It's great. Use any grenade you want. I'm going to be using Suppressor Grenade. Just make sure that you are out of the range of the Suppressor Grenade, or else you can keep yourself from using your super. All right, for ad clear for certain sections, I'm going to be using Bottom Tree Sunbreaker. There's really nothing fancy about this. I'm going to be creating sunspots with my Sun Warrior perk, but also I'm going to be using the Soul Invictus, which will help me to restore my health, which will be great when I am fighting a ton of ads. For the armor, when I'm using the boss DPS Sentinel Titan, I'm going to be using the Helm of Saint 14 to keep an overshield when I go out. When I'm on Sunbreaker, you certainly could use something like Phoenix Cradle, but honestly, all I used was the Lion Rampants, which are on sale at Xur right now. This weekend I'm posting this video, and that will help significantly with your platforming and jumping sections. Void and Arc Resist on your chest piece is also going to be very helpful. The final piece here is to make sure that you have the right class item mods on when you need to use them. Particle Deconstruction, especially when you're using fusions, is very important, and putting on Passive Guard whenever you're using any kind of a sword is going to be really helpful in staying alive through the dungeon. Okay, on the boss damage sections, I'm going to make sure I'm running that Particle Deconstruction. I've got Ward of Dawn, and I'm going to mainly be using Sleeper Simulant. It is the best simple strategy for people to get lots of really solid DPS, especially when stacking with Particle Deconstruction. Now, if you don't have the Catalyst, it's not the end of the world. You can still do really good DPS, but the Sleeper Simulant Catalyst will help out, and there have been reports in the wild that apparently the Sleeper Simulant Catalyst can drop from Nightfalls now. So if you can get it, great. If not, it's not the end of the world. Don't worry about it. With my Sleeper Simulant, I'm going to be using my Cartesian Coordinate. You can really use any fusion rifle you want, but I particularly like this one because it has Vorpal Weapon and it has lead from gold. Plus, make sure that you've got boss spec. This will help you finish off any of the bosses if you run out of ammo with your Sleeper Simulant. Again, if you want to use a different fusion rifle, you certainly can. For your kinetic weapon, I'm going to be using the AS Luna when I'm doing boss damage, but for other sections, you may want to have a sniper or a blinding grenade launcher for clearing ads, and we'll explain that when we get to those encounters, but you don't need to have those at all. When you're not worried about boss DPS, you can certainly just throw on a sword. I've got this Eager Edge Half-Truths, which is really nice for flying through different sections, and then I'm going to be using Trinity Ghoul to clear ads along with my blinding grenade launcher. Remember, all these things are just suggestions, but truth be told, I'm really only using 7 weapons in total. I've got a platforming ad clearing setup, which is my blinding grenade launcher, Trinity Ghoul, and a sword with my Lion Rampants to make the jumping and platforming sections easier. And then I have a boss DPS setup. and that's going to be my Helm of Saint 14 on my Ward of Dawn using my AS Luna, my Cartesian Coordinate, and my Sleeper Simulant. Now, if you've got Risk Runner, that's going to be helpful specific in only one part, and you're not actually going to use it for the firing of it. You're going to be using it for the arc damage resistance in the Sparrow section. I'll explain that when we get there. There's a couple of other options if you want to try something different. You can certainly use a Threaded Needle with Vorpal Weapon in place of Sleeper Simulant. You can also use Wither Horde for ad clearing if you want to do that. All of those options are great. Again, they are just suggestions. Use whatever feels comfortable to you. For my primary weapon, I'm using an AS Luna with Headstone, but you can always find a Vulpecula or just use an SMG. Okay, let's get into the run itself. We're going to start off with the Loot Cave, the dungeon entrance, which basically introduces you to the mechanics of the dungeon. I'll go through this a little bit faster since I covered it in my previous video, but in a nutshell, what you're going to do is kill a bunch of ads that are coming out of the Loot Cave, like the old days of Destiny 1, where you'd shoot a bunch of enemies coming out of this cave here in the Cosmodrome, and they drop tons of legendaries and every once in a while an exotic that Master Rahul could decrypt. Now they're going to drop weird looking, exotic looking engrams, and they are actually going to give you a debuff called Burden by Riches. Now Burden by Riches has two effects. You'll see that a timer arrives on screen. If you don't clear your Burden by Riches debuff, when the timer reaches 0, you die. But there's a couple of other effects that this thing does. Every stack of 10, so 10, 20, 30, or whatever, will actually recharge all of your abilities. In addition, you need to pick these up and deposit these Burden by Riches debuffs into the salt crystals to progress forward through the dungeon. For this opening section, you need to deposit 50 into this salt crystal right here at the back end of this cave. For the solo flawless version here, there's really nothing special to say other than don't die. There's a couple of wizards that can actually sneak up on you. You can actually see that I put a shield right here. For the opening encounter, just basically don't die, kill all the enemies with Trinity Ghoul, collect them, make sure that the wizards don't kill you, make sure you deposit them, and then move forward. Once you fall down, there's just a little bit of platforming. There's nothing crazy about this. Just pull out a sniper if you want to deal with the Shrieker, or you can just pop your super and just fly across. There's nothing crazy about this other than just use cover, don't die to the ads that are trying to fight you, and the truth is, run by them. There's no reason to fight them. It doesn't get you anything. You're going to be able to rally flag later. Just run past them so you don't die, and you'll be good. All right, just to make sure that I'm thorough, if you've done the dungeon before, you know what's coming up. This is the bait and switch encounter. Jump over that pressure plate using a sword is going to help out as well. Head through the pipe section here, and then make your way to the terminal underneath this platform. On a Titan, I like coming over to this area. Do not hit that switch. It will instantly kill you. Instead, jump over to this terminal and activate this one. Head back over to this platform, again, not hitting that switch, and then go over. I like this path a little bit better. On my Titan, on my Hunter, I like to actually just jump up from the platform underneath, but you use whatever is comfortable for you. Then head to this final pipe. Over here on the right-hand side, there's a pressure plate that you can safely step on. It opens up the grate above you, and you can jump up to the next section. Jump up here, don't go onto the pressure plate over on your left-hand side, and jump over those plates because those will drop as soon as you step on them. And now you're in this reservoir area. There's really nothing too crazy about this. All you need to do is make sure you don't step on the pressure plates in the two different rooms and make sure you don't die. There will be more enemies here. Using Trinity Ghoul and grenades is going to be amazing as you clear these folks. Just make sure that you don't push too hard and kill them first. Now activate this switch. A different door will open up, and then you'll be able to jump to the next room on the opposite side. Using Lion Rampants on a Titan is going to make this a heck of a lot easier. Watch out for the trap in the middle of the room. There's actually going to be a Thrall that can activate here in a second. That's always fun to watch. Kill the enemies and hit the switch in this room. Once you open up this switch, it will open up the last door on the opposite side. Go through here. You do not need to hit the switch over on the left-hand side. Just leave it open, and then make sure you have your sniper or a bow up. It will help deal with the servitor that's going to spawn here shortly. Jump on back down, and then through this fence grate here, you can actually do damage with a sniper or a bow. You can also shoot the knight that is on the opposite side. Now that area is where we're going to go. That's going to have our final switch for this area. So we're going to head back to this room here. The enemies will respawn, so just watch out for them. The trap is still active, so just make sure you don't die at that section. Now at this point, hit the switch and then move to the open door. Now the switches on the left and the right side here, you don't have to worry about, but you do have to hit this switch so you can go to the next section. You can use the doors that are now open here to jump across. And again, Lion Rampant is really going to help here on a Titan to make sure that you clear your jumps really easily. Knock out these enemies here and then head to the door that is by the orange lamp. Now, this next section is going to be around a central missile complex area. And so you just need to be careful because there's a little bit of platforming and a few ads to deal with, especially some wizards. Now, the wizards can hit you with their arc attacks, but they can also do the smoke attack that you just saw. So just make sure that you take out any of the enemies before you move to your next section. So this section is really simple. Hit the switch that you find at the different doors, go find the enemies when they spawn up, kill them, and then hit the next switch. It's easy. Just make sure you don't fall during this section. If you want to know the order of the doors, it is 1, then 3, then back to 1, then door 2 will open, and there will be an enemy with a Scorch cannon. Grab that Scorch cannon and then head to door 4. That is where you're going to need to proceed next. Okay, when you're over at door 4, there's a fallen charge port over here. There's 2 ways to interact with it. You can either shoot it directly into the charge area. If you shoot it 3 times, you'll be able to go through it a little bit faster, or you can save ammo, charge it by holding down the firing button, and when it gets to the 3rd kind of explosive sound, release it and you'll be good to go. All right, when you go up the stairs, there is a barrel trap here. Once you progress past that first little gap, a barrel will come down. Go into one of the slots on the left or the right-hand side and stay alive there. Now, if you're someone who's looking for the GJALLARHORN Catalyst, this is where you would find the second Reaver Vandal and the chest. I have a video linked down below if you want to find out more about that, but for now, we're just going to skip ahead and get to the Ogre Encounter. I'm going to show you 2 different builds that you can use here for the Ogre Encounter, and you can use whichever one you feel more comfortable with. The first one is my standard, using particle deconstruction with the Helm of St. 14 and a sleeper simulant with Cartesian coordinates. Now, an alternative build is using passive guard on your class item and using the Lament to do boss damage. The advantage to this is that you have passive guard, which will help keep you alive a little bit longer. Lament does okay boss damage. You'll definitely want to make sure that you have void damage resist. The other cool thing about this is when you're attacking the ogre with the sword, a lot of times he won't hit you with his void attack blast, but he can knock you back. And if you do get knocked back, just use your sword and get swiping back. You'll actually get drawn back into the middle. Now, I'm also using a blinding grenade launcher in the special slot since there's no reason to use a fusion rifle if I'm not running particle deconstruction. So that's a really nice, easy build if you want to use Lament. Those are 2 really accessible, easy builds to use. Use whichever one you feel more comfortable with. I'll show you both here in this section. Okay, really quick review. You need to get burdens and deposit them in this salt crystal right here. To get the burdens, you have to open up the garage doors on the left and the right sides of the map that are going to have a bunch of enemies that are going to spawn up. How do you open up those doors? Well, there's a Scorch cannon guy in the back of the map. Kill him and he'll drop the cannon, and you can open up the different sides using either the shots or the charged up shot from the Scorch cannon. Hey, you who's about to comment. Yes, I know for a fact that you can grab the Scorch cannon from underneath the bridge. This leads me to a concept that I want to talk about. Hold that comment for just a second, okay? Cool. Now, I know I'm making a dungeon guide for PvE, and I'm kind of known as a PvE guy, but we're going to talk about something that Destiny PvP players talk about all the time. And luckily, knowing this will help you, especially if you're struggling with this encounter. The concept we're talking about, movement. Did you notice that I actually grabbed the cannon from up on top, jumped down, and then jumped up again and put it back up on top? Did you notice how I didn't die? It's because I'm focusing on my movement. And 9 times out of 10, if you're dying in this section, that's probably the reason why. Your movement is probably not as good as it could be. You'll notice in my runs that I'm sliding around, changing directions quickly and often, and you'll notice that up here, see how I'm not dying at all? I'm up here jumping and just having fun with the ogre. Now, see what happens when I jump slowly into the air. By doing this, I give the ogre an easy target to focus on, and then I start to get wrecked. Now, of course, grab the Scorch cannon underneath if you are more comfortable with that. It is safer. I actually did it in my hunter run. I just cut out that footage before I put it in the video, but I did not expect a flood of you to actually comment on it. It is a great strategy. It's one I would say, yes, you should definitely use if it's your first time solo flawlessing stuff. But also remember that your movement is just as important as little tricks like grabbing the Scorch cannon from underneath the bridge. Here's another example of why movement is important. See how I'm getting to the salt crystal? I'm moving through the air, then I'm sliding. I'm making sure that I'm moving quickly and changing some inputs. And then of course, I'm teasing the ogre when I can. But understanding movement is so critical, especially in this encounter with all these wide open spaces. You'll also notice that I'm using cover often. I'm either using the crystal or I'm using these boxes over here to make sure that I hide. See how I slide right there and I'm moving like that? That is going to be critical if you want to survive through this encounter. You can't just hide behind boxes. You have to move from spot to spot to spot with confidence and make sure that you're sliding or jumping or moving in an unpredictable way. That's a concept I'm going to explore in a different video, so make sure you get subscribed for that. But for now, let's finish the Ogre encounter. So for this, just keep using your cannon to open up the doors, kill the enemies, and feel free to use your super whenever you're comfortable so that you can get your abilities back. A reminder, whenever you collect 10 burdens or stacks of 10 burdens, all of your abilities will instantly recharge. A good comment made in the previous video though is that if you are in a roaming super, wait until your super runs out to collect 10. So you can see here, I waited until my super ran out and then I collected 2 more to get my burden by riches above 10. At that point, I'm able to get my super back instantly and we're good to go. To start boss damage, you need to deposit 25 burdens, and if you don't clear them, you'll die. So make sure that you're either getting a stack of 25 really quickly or you're moving to the crystal in between the left and the right side doors. Okay, once you've deposited 25, you do need to wait until the flavor text shows up on the left-hand side of the screen. Until then, you can't actually do damage, and there's this weird glitch where sometimes he won't go immediately into his damage phase. So just be careful about that. Okay, here's the first damage strategy with Lament. I'm basically going in and out of the bubble with my sword, recharging my overshield, and making sure that he's basically stuck there. Now, if you're using Lament, make sure that you charge up the sword first by using block for just a split second and then using these combos that you see here on screen. By doing this, you will do some really cool combo attacks with the sword and you will be able to do tons of damage in the small window. I'm going to slow this down so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so make sure that you get weapons of light and then you're attacking him either in or out of the bubble. So here is a perfect combo coming up. I block for a second, do a light attack, and then a heavy attack. Do you see that spin that I did at the back end there? That is going to be the maximum amount of damage that I can get. Make sure that you're always checking your melee energy, which can be found over in the abilities bar. Now, if you don't have any ability energy for your sword, just use some normal attacks like I do right here to continue to do some damage while letting your sword charge up. At that point, then you can go ahead and do another combo and do whatever damage you can. Now, here's the thing about this strategy. With Lament, you won't ever 3-phase it, but it is a pretty safe strategy, and using passive guard is going to be really helpful, especially when dealing with the ads. If there's any point where you feel like you're in danger, pull out a sword and escape. You can always block if you've got sword energy as well and get extra damage resistance. Now, let's talk about folks who want to use Sleeper and Cartesian. You won't get the added defense from passive guard, but you will be able to do more damage to the boss. You'll need to be a little bit more safe, but I'd really recommend that you use the Scorch cannon to get as many of the enemies down as possible, especially the knights in the back of the left and the right side room. An easy safe strat to help you in staying alive is meleeing some of the enemies once you get your defensive strike back and then head to the crystal. Now, if you're using Sleeper and Fusion rifles, I'd recommend that once you get the flavor text to proc, come up to this area here and put the bubble directly in this spot. It'll blind any of the enemies that are coming from the side, especially the Thrall, and you'll have a clear shot on the Ogre. The advantage of this is that you can hit his critical spot, but he can't run up and actually start to melee you. He can run up right in front of you and try to kill you, but whenever you feel like you're in danger, just hop into the bubble for a second, get an overshield back, and you're good to go. If you run out of Sleeper Simulant, just use your other fusion rifle, and if there are other enemies, use your normal fusion rifle to knock him out. With those strategies, you can easily clear the Ogre really quickly and easily on a Titan. Okay, so here's the TLDR. Always be checking your burdens, always making sure that you don't run out of time. Don't get too many burdens because that will waste time for DPS that you'll have to be staying on the crystal. Know your damage strat. If you're using a sword, make sure you put the bubble in the middle. If you're using fusions, fall back and put that bubble up so enemies can't kill you. Try to keep the Scorch cannon with you so it doesn't disappear and the Scorch enemy comes back and tries to kill you. Try to create unpredictable movement and use your super often. Okay, so now it's time for the Sparrow run. Got a couple things to talk about in here, but first of all, you may have noticed that I've put on a Risk Runner. That's going to give me increased arc damage resistance, and I've also moved my chest piece over to increased arc damage resistance. While that won't help out your Sparrow with the damage resistance, it will help you in case of your Sparrow explodes, and it might keep you alive just a little bit longer. We have a bunch of little misconceptions to take care of. The first being that you have to have the always on time Sparrow. to get this part done. This is from the Scourge of the Past raid. It is available in the kiosk, but it is technically a raid piece of gear, and I did use it in my last video. However, you don't need to use it. In fact, I've completed this on a blue Sparrow. I'm not trying to flex. Well, maybe just a little. But it's so important to realize that just because you don't have a piece of loot in the game doesn't mean that you can't do stuff inside of the game. Now, would I recommend using a blue Sparrow for your solo flawless run? Absolutely not. But don't put natural barriers in your way. Maybe you can complete it with the Sparrow that you have in your inventory. In fact, right now, there is a Sparrow that you can buy from the Eververse store called the Mirthmobile. It's the holiday version of the Micro Mini Sparrow. I've also done this on a legendary Sparrow. The big thing is just to find a Sparrow that you feel comfortable driving and that seems to handle pretty well. Now, I've done some research and there has been some videos saying that Mirthmobile is better because it has a smaller hitbox. That is 100% false. Do you see that I'm jamming my Sparrow into the wall here? See that big massive gap? That is the hitbox of the Sparrow. Even though the Sparrow looks smaller, it is not. Need more proof? Here's me jamming my Sparrow into the side of this column here with the Mirthmobile. Now we're going to switch it out with my always on time, and you're going to see that there's a big portion of my wing that goes into the column. See, look over here. See how the main part of my Sparrow actually goes right up against the wall, but the wing goes in the column? The hitbox is exactly the same. Now, the only reason I bring it up is because I want to make sure that our community is well informed about Destiny, and I want to make sure you know what's up. So if you have a friend or someone that says, yes, the hitbox on Sparrows is different and you just can't convince them otherwise, here's the timestamp for the video. Feel free to show this to them later. Now, just because it has the same hitbox doesn't mean that it's not a good choice. One of the attributes about some of these Sparrows is that there are increased stats on some of them that are actually hidden. For example, the always on time raid Sparrow is actually faster than all other 160 Sparrows. Now, to me, the Mirthmobile and the Mini Sparrow both seem like they have increased handling and turning, which makes it really nice for this particular route. So if you want to use that, go ahead, find a Sparrow that you feel comfortable driving and seems to be pretty quick. If you can get a 160 speed Sparrow, that's going to be your best bet. But you don't have to have the always on time Sparrow to do this. I really want to make sure that I drive that home. Okay, let's go through the run itself. In my previous video, I said that there were only 2 switches in this opening area, but that's not true. There is a third switch that the community let me know about over on the ship, and I'm going to show that in this video. If you want to see the switches on the left-hand side, I just passed that one right there. Let's go up to the ship, and right here, if you can make that jump, it is a good switch to hit. It's nice because you don't have to deal with as many enemies, and that will be solid. Now, here's a tip. A lot of people are wondering why I am getting on and off my Sparrow. As soon as your Sparrow starts to go on fire, if an enemy hits it and it explodes, there is going to be a respawn timer. So you want to get on and off your Sparrow anytime you think it's going to explode. As always, using these switches is not necessarily 100% needed, but I do find when you are doing a solo flawless run, it does make it a little bit easier. And now you can also see why I'm using Risk Runner. The reason why I'm doing that is so that my character is taking very little damage. All of the enemies here shoot arc. So having Risk Runner and arc damage resist on my chest piece is going to help. Now, that being said, it's not going to help your Sparrow. It's just going to help your Guardian's health. Last thing, you don't have to take this jump, but this jump over here on the left-hand side will get you the final switch. So if you do feel like you are low on time and you can afford it, make that jump and make sure you get a lot of speed as you come over. Get down to this area as quickly as possible. Now, another thing to cover is that all you have to do is drive through those circles. You don't actually have to hop off and stay within that circle. I just do that to make sure I can get a new Sparrow. Now, you may have noticed that I have been skipping all the collectibles and the secret chests, especially if you know about those. If you are interested in checking those out, here is this video to find all of the messages in the bottle for the GJALLARHORN ornament, as well as the 2 secret chests. After that, just go through the salt mine area and make sure you put on your ad clearing stuff. You can see I've got Trinity Ghoul back on, my sword, my Hammer Titan, as well as a blinding grenade launcher. It's not required, but it will definitely help in the next section. All right, we are at the Cannonball encounter in the Sunken Lair. There's not a lot of class-specific stuff to talk about with this, but I will still talk about it and go through it briefly just to make sure that I'm thorough with this guide. Basically, there are a bunch of islands in the Sunken Lair, and what you need to do is use these man cannons here to shoot cannonballs at the fallen shield. To get these servitors and get these cores into the man cannon so you can shoot it, you have to go to the different islands and blow up those servitors. There will be an immune shield on those servitors that we'll talk about here in just a little bit. But first things first, you want to rotate the cannon to which side you want to go. So either to the left, right, or middle. Now, all of the man cannons will have a charge port attached to it, and that's what you're going to do. Charge it up and shoot yourself through the man cannon. That being said, you actually don't need to charge the cannons to actually move yourself across. All you really have to do is shoot them and they'll work. But I do like to actually shoot the charge input and then aim the cannon really quickly so I can aim the cannon exactly where I want to go. And as soon as I'm ready, I let it fly. Once you find your immune servitor that you're looking for, there's going to be a bunch of ads throughout here, plus a Scorch cannon enemy. I'd feel free to use your super as much as possible here, since when you collect stacks of 10, which you will probably do on the islands, you'll get your super back anyway. Just make sure that before you collect 10, you expend all of your super. I'd also run a sword with passive guard just in case you need to stay alive and have a little bit more defense. I have seen it where the enemies can sneak up on you really quickly, so just having that in your back pocket is a good thing. If you want to use Risk Runner here, most of the enemies do shoot arcs, so that's another good choice if you don't want to use Trinity Ghoul. Just like all the encounters, watch out to make sure that your timer doesn't run out, and to kill the servitors, you need to make sure that you deposit 20 burdens total. Make sure that you clear all of your burdens before you proceed forward, and watch out for other enemies. They may spawn up and they may also drop more burdens when you are in the process of getting the servitor into its place. You can see an enemy right here is going to drop one. I'm going to make sure I clear it. Now at this point, I'm going to gently tap in the core into the man cannons and then shoot them off. Now, these cores have a ton of momentum, so just tap it in whatever direction you want to go. If you push too hard, it can get rolling and you can lose control. It might fall off the edge, and if that happens, just find the next servitor and continue forward. Once you've got it in the right position and you've aimed the man cannon, go ahead and shoot the cannonballs and you're good to go. You'll need to do this a grand total of 4 times to open up the fallen shield. Now, Bungie has patched the glitch that was happening before, where if a core fell off the edge or someone finished it, it would sometimes kick you to orbit. So that's really the entire encounter here. There's nothing crazy for the Titan. If at any point you feel like you're threatened, pop your super and you're good to go. Here's the big things to remember. Check your burdens always, just like every encounter. Remember that the salt crystals to deposit your burdens are going to be far away, so make sure you get rid of all of them. Just gently tap in those servitors into the man cannons and make sure that you aim them. If you can't find the servitor, go on up. This is a pretty easy encounter to do. Basically, it's just ad control. Take some time, don't rush through this, and you'll be in good shape. Your loot for this encounter will be over on the middle island, and remember, if you've been farming the GJALLARHORN Catalyst, the island for that is over on the right with the waterfall. Again, if you have questions about that, check that link in the description box below. When you're all done with that, head on up through the Fallen Shield area and go to the final encounter. All right, so now we're at the final encounter with Captain Avarokk. Here's a quick review of the encounter. Captain Avarokk will be surrounding a salt crystal in the middle. There will be a major shank and a major fallen enemy in the middle that you'll want to deal with first before you deposit any of your burden of riches. Throughout the encounter, there's going to be a bunch of ads that are going to spawn up on the left and the right side, as well as the lower middle area that you'll need to handle and make sure that you take out. Finally, and most importantly, there'll be an enemy with a Scorch cannon running around the arena. And once you kill him, he'll drop a Scorch cannon, which you use on either the front or the 2 sides. You charge up one of the charge ports, and once you've charged it up or shot it a couple of times, the canisters on the outside of the room will drop a bunch of the burden of riches engrams. Once you collect 60 and deposit them all into the crystal in the middle of the room, you'll then be able to do DPS. Avarokk's going to move to the back of the room when you do this, and then you can just shred as much damage as you possibly can on him. If you don't kill him within the damage window, then you'll need to repeat the entire process once again, and that's the boss fight. That's a really simple explanation of it, but now let's go over the class-specific aspects of this fight on the Titan to make sure you can get your solo flawless done. Okay, reminder of the loadout. I am using the boss DPS loadout, which is my sleeper simulant, my Cartesian coordinate with boss spec on there. My Helm of Saint 14 is critical because that is going to give me an overshield. Now, I used a charged with light build here, so I had charged up taking charge and the high energy fire mod on my stuff, but I really recommend that no matter what, you make sure you at least have as much recovery as you can possibly get on your character, as well as at least 50 resilience. super energy is not such a big deal because you're going to be getting your super back all the time. You can see here I'm speccing out my stuff to have as much recovery as I possibly can. You can also see that I'm still running double arc resistance on my chest piece to make sure that I don't die to any random adds. Of course, make sure that you have particle deconstruction on your class item so that you can do the maximum amount of damage with your sleeper and Cartesian coordinate. When you start the encounter, start strong. Pop a bubble as soon as you can, and as soon as the shank and grist packs come out of the middle, put a suppressor grenade on them. They will get suppressed and start to do some damage as quickly as possible. The most important thing to get is the shank, and the shank will sometimes chase you up to this backside here, and you can wreck him without using your sleeper simulant. If at any point you feel like you're in danger, hop back into your Titan bubble and refresh your overshield. The nice thing about this placement with the bubble is you can rip through that shank really quickly, start with a good sense of confidence, and then start to move around the room, and you'll have an overshield. Now, here's a cool trick that I discovered, and actually some other members of the community figured out as well. If you kill the Scorch cannon enemy and don't pick up his cannon, it won't disappear. You can just leave it there until you're ready for it. If you pick it up, though, you have a chance of another Scorch captain coming, and if you drop it, then it will disappear. All right, next up is a recommendation for Titans only. Warlocks have the ability to get their life back in a rift, and hunters can go invisible. However, if Titans go after those 10 engrams in the middle, once you kill grist packs, you stand a very good chance of dying to the boss or getting stamped off the edge. Instead, just skip them. There's really no reason for you to go after them if you don't have to. And for those people who are like, well, you can get a super if you can get all 10, that's true, but if you miss even one, or if you're too close to the crystal, you won't get a stack of 10, and then you won't get your super and your abilities back, so it's better just to take a second, let those disappear, and move on. What worked really well for me is to clear this area here on the left side of the room as you enter, and this lower middle area, and clear it out. And then I use that area specifically only to pick up the engrams. These engrams over here are a lot easier to get, and also there's not a chance of one accidentally dropping in the water. So skip the 10 from grist packs and instead just get 3 sets of 20 from the walls. You'll always be able to get your super back with this strategy, and you can always just pop your bubble right here, chill on the crystal, and get rid of all of them. It was really easy to handle the adds with this strategy, and I didn't really have to worry about them swarming me. A reminder then, any extra burdens that you have outside the 60 to initiate boss damage will not be cleared instantly. So if you've got extra, you've got to make sure that you stay on the crystal to clear them. Luckily, I'm going to show you a strategy with the Titan so you can actually stay safe and clear those in case if you accidentally get them. As a rule, whenever you're depositing any of the Burden by Riches engrams, put your bubble down. There's no reason not to. So right here, I'm going to put my bubble basically right on top of the crystal. And at this point, I'm going to put a barrier to the right-hand side. By doing that, that blocks the enemies on the right-hand side. I've got a bubble here, I've got a barrier on the side, and I can do DPS without getting flinched from the adds. If I have any burdens, they'll all be cleared off when I go back into the bubble to refresh my overshield and make sure that I keep my weapons of light. As soon as the damage phase is over, head over to the left-hand side and stay alive, grab the cannon if you've got one with you, hide and cover, and get ready to repeat. So with the newest patch, Bungie has made it easier to get heavy ammo. One way you can do that is just by using your primary kinetic weapon. It gives you a small chance whenever you're damaging adds to generate ammo. So as soon as boss damage is over and I'm repeating the entire process, I'm going to focus on getting a fresh Scorch cannon down, and then I'm going to farm heavy ammo by farming adds with my primary weapon. The great thing about this encounter is you don't have to start boss DPS until you feel like it. You really can go at your own pace here as long as you're dealing with all the different adds. When you choose a specific side and make sure that you kill all of the adds there, you're in great shape. All you got to do is make sure that you stay safe and use cover as much as possible, and then just farm for heavy ammo. As soon as you have heavy ammo, you want to make sure you go after grist packs and the shank. The boss is going to be throwing mines at you, which you just saw on screen here, so just take out those mines really quickly, and again, use cover as much as possible, leave the Scorch cannon off to the side, and as soon as you're ready to engage, go for it. All right, last thing. When you are charging the cannons here with this strategy, I'm just going to use the lower central charge port and the charge port on the left side here. When one of the charge ports is used, then it will close and you have to go to a different side. But I basically just go back and forth between those two sides over and over and over. That way I don't have to rotate different sides. Here's what you need to know. Aim high when you're going after that lower central charge port. 9 times out of 10, if you aim directly at it, you won't be able to actually get it to explode and power and charge up, and then you'll have to go do it again. Just aim a little bit high on it and you'll be good to go. So here's the TLDR for the final encounter. Check your burdens, always do that for every encounter. Leave the Scorch cannon where it drops until you need it. You don't need to pick it up, and that way you won't have another guy spawn up. Of course, kill Avarokk's crew, so that's the Shank and Gristbacks. You only need 60 burdens for DPS, so do 3 sets of 20. Don't do any more than that, and you'll be good. If you need more heavy ammo, farm adds by using your primary weapon, and heavy will drop. Do damage with your bubble covering the salt crystal, and of course, whenever you're depositing any of the burdens of riches, use your bubble because you get your super bag anyway. With all of these tips and tricks, you are going to absolutely knock out this dungeon, and I really encourage you to give it a try. So many people who watched my first video were able to get solo flawlesses, and in the comment section, it's one of the coolest things to see as a content creator. I want to see you succeed, so if you get a solo flawless with this, make sure that you leave a comment down below, and if it helps you out in any way, make sure that you like the video. And as always, if you want to see more Destiny 2 content, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single video. If you have questions or just want to join a great community or you need help, come on over to twitch.tv/manodestra. I do tons of helps from Grandmasters, exotic helps, raids, and of course, dungeons just like this one. Of course, if you're looking for other people to game with, check down in the description box below. We have the link for the community Discord right there. We'd love to get a ton of you together so we can get ready for Witch Queen, and we have some awesome fun sections in there to share as well when we're not talking about Destiny. Thank you so much for watching. Good hunting, Guardians. I will see you next time in the universe of Destiny.